Hi, I'm Scott Gunton and my magazine is Tunes for You. These are the drafts and inspirations of my front covers, mainly inspired by Q magazine and sort of NME and things like that. I used like a hip-hop genre here and a more indie style here just to see where I could go and if I could experiment with just different types of genre with the same sort of masthead and things like that. These are the contents page, mainly sort of like drafted after Q magazine. Main things I tried to address here was different contents page styles, like the difference between using just like a main image or just smaller ones. This was my final front cover. In what ways does your media product use, develop or challenge forms and conventions of real media products? Well, I've got the masthead, which I used text from gunton.MPG, and I played around with it to a huge extent in Photoshop using filters, lighting, plastic wrap, strokes, drop shadows, and I did the same with the slogan above it. Cover lines was just sort of like standard text that I coloured and put stroke around. Got the skyline, a barcode and date in the appropriate places, the pull quote, which is nebulous claim their time is now, and photography. The reason why I chose to make it black or white is because I felt with the colour theme I was going with, black and white was a more generic feel to make it work rather than yeah, that's the colour. We've got the contents page here where I used brushes for the background. The contents text is all laid out. And images, I just wanted to take images of people who'd sort of be enjoying the magazine. This is the double page spread where I took the headline text from gunton.com and played around with it in Photoshop. How did your media product represent particular social groups? Main focus was for musicians and music lovers in general. I didn't want to particularly stereotype any particular music social group because I think music's too vast of a phenomenon to try and narrow yourself down, and I want to try and approach as big an audience as I possibly could find. What kind of media institution might distribute your media product and why? Well, 42% out of about 30 people I asked said that they'd most likely see my product in a newsagent. 27% bookstores, 8% petrol stations, 19% WH Smith, and 4% see it as online only. I chose Bauer as my distributor because they're also the distributors of Q and Kerrang, which are quite large selling magazines at the moment. Right, what would be the audience for your media product? Well, the highest percentage here is 64%, which is males and females aged 16 to 30.
These were the results of a survey you undertook after you produced the magazine?
Yeah, this was
when
after.
They saw the magazine.
Yeah. So I was quite pleased with that. Second highest was like males only. I think it's because I had a male on the front cover. How did you attract your target audience? Well, mainly I looked at magazines and decided to see what worked and just sort of like kept it there. Looked at present day cultures, as well as like, if it's not broken, don't fix it. I didn't want to try anything too unique. What have you learned about technologies? I used Blogger, SlideShare, SurveyMonkey, Issue, Font.com, psbrushes.net, and Facebook to an extent that I haven't used before. And looking back at your preliminary task, what do you feel have you learned in the progression from to the full product? Basic magazine layout. I've made like programs before, but not to like this extent. Sharpening Photoshop skills and just sort of like basic colour coding to see what works and what doesn't. And mainly what people want to see.
Thanks very much. Can I just have a look at your front cover again? How would you say particular social groups are represented in that front cover?
I think it's more of like an indie rock front cover, more than anything. But I tried to make it sort of like non-stereotypical with sort of like the contents of the actual magazine with what's inside it. But I personally wanted to just focus on one thing when it actually came to the front cover.
So what music genre is your magazine of?
I tried not to narrow it down to too much, but if I was to sort of like choose a genre, it'd probably be like indie rock.
But it's not pop.
No.
And it's not classical.
No. I tried to just like make it as wide as I could to try and focus to a mass audience rather than a niche market.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.